Well, somehow I'm up to 30 episodes of this series. I'm mesmerised that at this point so far, my eyeballs haven't become square with all the 90-degree corners I've had the pleasure, or perhaps displeasure you could argue, of seeing. I wonder if we're going to get more 90-degree corners in this particular episode, because prior to doing the research for this video, I'd only heard about this particular circuit through quite a lot of you requesting it. So, let's see what my voyage of discovery has led me down, for a track that was utilised in 1990 to 1993. I'm just hoping for less 90-degree corners in this one. Right, okay, let's begin then, naturally, with turn 1, which you initially don't see until you go over a crest, before you must brake heavily whilst gravity does all it can to mess you up. Once again, the turn in question is yet another 90-degree affair, but luckily there is a redeeming feature in that the corner opens up significantly, decreasing in elevation along with impressive levels of camber on the road, with the tarmac and gravity once again actively doing all it can to mess you up as you turn into a medium speed uphill left-hander going up Cogswell Street. Also, this driver in the white Camaro has gotten the idea of the rules of the road. They're in the correct lane if they want to turn left, continuing on the path of the circuit. Anyone below that white car is terribly mistaken. Either go straight, which will lead you to some unpleasant concrete wall and a terrified camera person, or go right, but realise that you'll be going in the wrong direction, and thus leading to a DNF. Or do none of those things and just accept that it's the better line going into the corner of the racetrack. Up Cogswell Street you go, on a stretch of tarmac that allows you to fit 3 cars wide if you so wish. But be quick though in completing your move, because with the following corner, side-by-side action is strictly forbidden, unless immense cooperation is given by both parties, on either layout. Ah yes, that brings me on to the layout alterations from year to year. The corner itself was a chicane which went from the right to the left, over a colossal bump in the road, before going to the right again. Although in truth, the final right was practically non-existent. However, if you continue going straight on at the start of the chicane, then you'd be entering the pit lane. That was the layout during the year 1991. For 1992, things were slightly different. And perhaps in my view, and I believe this is a first for this series, although I suspect it probably won't be the last, that piece of track was made worse than its predecessor. The chicane was a bit slower this time, with the final right-hander being a bit more prevalent this time round. The course now followed where the pit lane used to be, and the piece of circuit which used to be where the live racetrack would go was now suddenly the pit lane. I wonder if the changes were anything to do with the huge bump in the middle of the chicane on the original layout, because notice how the entrance to the new pit lane is at much more of a sharper angle than the original racetrack layout was. Maybe done in an effort to reduce the violence of the bump. Unfortunately, this new chicane was a bit more clunky than before, and if anything was even tighter than the original. Going side by side was not an option. Do it at your peril. It'll be unforgiving if done incorrectly. A straight that's not straight comes immediately after the chicane on both layouts, before braking heavily once again for another 90-degree corner. You know what? Maybe I should have a small sound effect every time I mention the term 90-degree corner. Although after a while, I'm not sure that would become particularly healthy. Having earworms after hearing the phrase 90-degree corner is probably not a good idea. Once you exit the right-angled left-hander, a sharp left kink of almost no description comes afterwards, before you're forced once again to dive on the anchors, for another... Oh, for Pete's sake, it's another one of these again, so let's just move on. Down one of the longer straights on this circuit, which comparatively speaking isn't all that long at all, until you reach the final corner of the Halifax Citadel Hill Street circuit. Maybe the best corner on the circuit in my view. A right-hander which has a tight entry where the inside wall comes out towards you initially, but retracts somewhat after you hit the apex of the corner, meaning there's quite a nice flow to the bend. It's not a great overtaking opportunity, but if I'm honest, the rest of the track isn't all that conducive to overtaking either. After you go through the final corner, it's back onto the start-finish straight, where the blind crest once again greets you towards the heavy braking zone for turn 1 again. And just like that, you've completed a lap of this track. A track that's just 1.15 miles / 1.85 kilometres in length. Now when it comes to the history of the event, it almost feels like a case of, we've seen others do it, why not have a crack ourselves? This track was created after the city of Halifax saw the relative successes of other Canadian street tracks like Toronto and Montreal and explored the opportunity of having a race in their city as well. They collaborated with the Moosehead Brewing Company to create the brilliantly titled Moosehead Grand Prix. Imagine the likes of David Croft or Lee Diffie saying that in the commentary box. A crowd of 30,000 people gathered to watch the headline event, which was the American IndyCar Series. And no, for those people who think they may have heard of this series before, it's not the actual IndyCar series that runs today. To cut a long story short, it was basically a series for older IndyCar machines to continue competing in. However, that series left after 1992, and instead were replaced with the rather unusual choice of the British Formula 2 series. Does seem a bit strange logistically, but still, that's what happened. 1993 would be the last time the Halifax Citadel Hill Street Circuit would be used, with the running of the Moosehead Grand Prix being ran by a different company, which then went off to race on a track constructed at Shearwater Air Force Base, and the streets of Halifax wouldn't host street racing again. Certainly one of the more unique events I've covered in this series so far, although if I'm being totally honest, the track has a little left to be desired. Other than the fairly extreme elevation changes this track had at the start of the lap, it just doesn't seem all that captivating. Plus, the amount of overtaking did seem quite limited. A reasonably narrow track with not many long straights to create heavy enough braking zones didn't help in this matter. Furthermore, I don't think the series headliners were all that exciting either. The American Indy cars were cool, but if I'm honest, that series just doesn't scream out to be a headline series. If it was at certain road courses around the country, ones like Mid-Ohio, Road America, Road Atlanta, Sonoma and so forth, then yes, maybe the American Indy cars would be a great headline championship. But on a street circuit, where one of the primary aims of a street circuit is to try and spread global awareness of how awesome your city is, a series like this, and British Formula 2, they just don't have the same global recognition as other championships. It sadly doesn't surprise me that this event lasted as long as it did. However, if we could have more blind crests and extreme elevation changes on modern day street circuits, then I'm all for it. Just less of those 90-degree corners though, please, if possible. That though is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any more street circuits that you'd like to see featured in this series, then say down in the comment section. However, until the next video, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day.